G'day cocktail lovers. I'm going to do a little taste comparison tonight. Something I've been meaning to do for a while. I think this might be both a bit of fun and informative, might be of more use to Australian viewers, but also for people who just want to know, what's the state of Australian whiskey like? Anyone who knows me knows I think the state of Australian whiskey is pretty darn good. There's a lot of them there. There are a couple of there that aren't Australian, but the vast majority of them are, and they're top notch. They're from quite a few different distilleries, and I'm only scratching the surface of the amount of distilleries in Australia making top quality whiskey. I do have some good ones. What I've been meaning to do for a while is entry-level whiskies, and that's entry-level on two fronts. One is it's the easier to approach whiskies, not the really robust single malts, particularly the high proof ones, but also from a price point. These are the most accessible ones that are easy to get in Australia, because you will have heard me rant a few times, and if you know anything about Australian prices, alcohol super expensive because of taxes. Well, for two reasons really. Taxes is the big one. An enormous part of the cost is taxes, with the view that whiskey, well, not just whiskey, alcohol is a bit of a health issue, and we need to fund the health system with it. Look, that's a really complex issue. I might get someone who knows about the Australian super tax on alcohol to explain it one day. The second reason alcohol can be very expensive here is if it's from overseas, it costs a lot to ship stuff to Australia. We're in the middle of nowhere. If it's local stuff, it's almost always from smaller independent distillers that can't produce at scale that allows them to compete price-wise with the big international brands. What I was waiting for was for a couple of these whiskies to come on market, because I knew they were coming, and also for a couple of them to be on special to make this a little bit affordable for me, because the general price for these entry-level whiskies is about a bottle and a half of Jack Daniels, say. I don't know why I've adopted that as my international measure of cost. It gives you an idea of the sort of premium you're paying for these Australian spirits if I compare it to something really standard that's around the world. In Australian dollars, that means these could be anywhere from $70 to $90 for a bottle. I always tip for Australians, just keep an eye out for specials. I see really good specials from the various outlets semi-regularly. These are about, as I said, bottle and a half of Jack Daniels, except for this one, Ned's whiskey, which I've never really tasted before. It's pretty close to the same price as a Jack Daniels. These guys, because I have actually met some people at a whiskey show, they're pretty keen on knocking off the Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, Johnny Walker things, and also they're pretty big on the premix market. I generally don't drink premixes, but I have tried theirs, and it's actually really good. I had the Ned's and Dry Ginger Ale. They also do a cola. I was really surprised at how good it was. Not because I had anything against Ned's, just I don't like premix, and this was actually quite good. This is my old faithful, Starward Twofold from Melbourne. Ned's is also distilled in Melbourne. I have a lot of Starward products, some of their special ones, some of their regular ones. This is their entry-level Twofold double grain Australian whiskey. This one has been around for quite a while. Probably longer than Ned's, although I'm not sure. I've been drinking and using this for a while. This was released not very long ago from the Archie Rose Distillery. They're Sydney based. I have quite a few of their whiskies and gins. They make really good product, and they've brought out a range they call, let me see, I'm going to get this right because I always use the wrong word. They call it fundamental spirits. I was going to say essential. This was trying to get a more attractive price point for a lot of the punters out there. They did a vodka, a gin, and a whiskey. The fourth in this little batch is another one from Sydney, from the Manly Distilling Company. They're Coastal Stone, distilled by the sea. These are all 40% ABV, so very approachable. As I said, they're entry level, not just on price, but in terms of how strong they are. So that's the shootout. 2 Sydney whiskies, 2 Melbourne whiskies, all 40% ABV. 2 I have tried, 2 I've never tried. I'm trying for the first time here. I've had them all put in little Glencairn glasses for me by Mrs. Angry. So I don't know which is in which, and I'm going to give them a taste. Now, because I'm sort of pitching this at people who maybe don't know a lot about the whiskies and should they get into it, I hope you appreciate I don't know how to say the words that the real whiskey people know how to say. I'm going to be very vague, but it'll probably be good, not as good. Tasting this one, well, I'm smelling, oh man, the aroma on that is really nice. Really rich honey and maybe a little bit floral. Yeah, sometimes the alcohol you get, like the nostril hairs burn, not at all in this. Well, I'm going to dive in and give it a taste as well. Noticeably sharper on the palate than the aroma. Still very nice. Still that whole honey thing going on. It's almost not like a fireball cinnamon, but just that really nice sort of light cooking spice element in there. Bottle number 2, give it the aroma test. This, for want of a better word, smells a bit more alcohol-y than the other one. So not as appealing on the nose, not terrible, but definitely not as appealing. Let's see how that translates to the taste. That's more consistent with the nose. Ooh, what's the... I did mention I'm very bad at the words. I think there's a really... Maybe it's literally the grain. It's not that these are corn whiskies, but there is an element in this one that actually tastes like corn to me. Okay, sample number 3, giving this one a bit of a nosing. This is more like number 2 than number 1. My 14-year-old brain just really wanted to giggle that I said that, but forget me, I'm just being silly. It smells like whiskey, so let's taste it. Well, this has a bright sort of fruity sweetness. Very at odds with how it smells. Very light and bright, like I said, even like an almost citrus fruitiness in there, which is not something I usually equate with whiskey. But like I said, I'm really bad at coming up with good words for it. The 4th one, what do I think of this one? This one actually smells, it's more like that wood smell, the whiskey barrel smell, than the other 3. Bit musty. And not in a bad way. It's that flavour you get. There's like wood or maybe even wet paper. You get that in a lot of whiskies. I'm going to taste this one. Very light honey-ish. It is quite hard to pick a favourite among these. They'd all be good to introduce someone to whiskey. Nothing stands out, which I guess some people say, well, it's because they're just the basic ones. And that would be a fair point, that none of them really have a character that leaps out and grabs you. This one, I'm going to guess, is Starward's Twofold, because it was the one that I thought was fruity, and that's a thing that Twofold promotes himself on. Let's see if I can guess that right. Number 2, I got it. It was Starward's Twofold. I do like this. I'm not saying I like it significantly more than the others, but I could pick it. This one, because I have, of the 2 that I've tasted, I'm going to try and guess that this is the Archie Rose, which would be the number 1, and I was wrong, that's the Coastal Stone. So the Coastal Stone had the nicest aroma. So this one, okay, that's the Ned's, and that's the Archie Rose. So I'm going to do a quick retaste knowing this is the cheapest one. Like, does it taste cheap? It can be 20% cheaper than the other ones. I'm going to go my old favourite Twofold. It is just these light, bright notes with just a really interesting fruitiness under it. And the Ned's, it's a more down-the-line whiskey taste. Nothing wrong with that. I probably, it might have been the power of suggestion. When I tasted this, I was pretty sure it was Twofold. No huge recommendation of any one of these over the other. It's probably going to depend what you're after. But I'm also going to do one more little experiment, because I rarely drink whiskey straight, and it's usually only to do a comparison of tastes. I normally have cocktails, and the old-fashioned thing. What I have here is my little instant old-fashioned mix. It's my brown sugar syrup and some Angostura bitters, and I'm just going to put a couple of drops in each. I should have done this before I identified what they were. Oh well. I'm going to see if any of them particularly lend themselves to being turned into an old-fashioned. Use Gaz Regan's finger to stir. Coastal Stone as an old-fashioned. Very good. Try not to break my glasses when I do this. This is Ned's as an old-fashioned. This makes a really serviceable old-fashioned. Twofold. Bloody slipped and put way too much of the old-fashioned mix in here, which honestly tastes good, but I've completely overpowered the whiskey. So this would be the Archie Rose. Well, they all make a good old-fashioned. I am pleased to report, if you see any of these and feel like getting them, I would not warn you against them. None of them were dodgy. Given how much cheaper Ned's was, I was wondering if I'd go, oh yeah, that's cheap. And I don't feel that at all. I wouldn't call any of them particularly subtle. I think the Twofold sets itself apart more from the others, but that doesn't mean you're going to like it more just because it's a little bit more different than the others. It's a great range, and I personally, being parochial as I am, would love to see Australian whiskies taking over a bit more. Go you good things, and yeah, if any of these were available anywhere else in the world, I think Ned's in particular might be attacking the export market. I know Starward do export to a few markets. I don't think you would get either of these outside of Australia right now. If you're in Australia, they're all options. I recommend you try them. And I'm probably going to tip those all into the one big old-fashioned and sit down and have the first little drinky since I had COVID. Yes, I had COVID. I'm pretty much over it now, and I thought I'd try some alcohol after staying off the alcohol for over a week, because I'm a good boy. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting or entertaining, and I hope to see you again sometime soon. But until I do, I will say cheers.